Since arriving back at Disney as the head honcho, the Rebound CEO, Bob Iger, has, just not quite achieved any of the results he set out to, deliver.
Wow, I am shocked.
He's so desperate, as a matter of fact, that he brought back 2 executives from his previous administration to kind of right the ship in an advisory role. And we've talked about them before, Tom Staggs and the other guy. And to be fair, they could possibly help. But I don't think a lot of people in the finance side of things think anything's going to help. We should probably talk about that. Here we go. So with a newly extended contract, Uncle Bob is not delivering still. He's got a 4-year mission in total to turn Disney around, a company that he knew was going to go sideways and bailed out of just so he wouldn't be the guy that was seen as the one doing it. Of course, a lot of his actions have created a very toxic work environment for all employees, and the ones that haven't been driven out by, some of the political leanings that have been, force-fed into this company, they're probably not going to stick around long because of more layoffs that are definitely in the future. So that 4-year mission and its current results yield are quite negative, to say the least. And you have a Disney stock that's dropped another 11% since he returned back in November. Not a positive direction. I mean, it was already a company that had gone downward due to many financial situations, such as the pandemic and some other things as well. But it's very strange when compared to the S&P. It's down and the S&P is up by 13%. We're looking at a really weird earnings call this quarter, and that's probably the best way to describe it. It's going to be kind of the make or break moment for Iger's return, and it's going to give, the board and maybe some of the investors a little bit of heartburn, because there's not a lot of positive here. We know for a fact that streaming is continuing to lose money. We know that the cruise line business for Disney has had some struggles lately, and they may be continuing. We know that the visits to the Magic Kingdom, Disney World, the crown jewel of theme parks area, we know that they've had less traffic. We know that the films are not only underperforming, but flopping quite hard to the tune of, in this last calendar year, they've lost over $1 billion.
What else do we know?
We know a lot of things that are very, very negative. We don't know anything that's positive. And that's going to be Bob Iger's job today, the day you're watching this video on August 9th. Because at this earnings call, he has to make his case for A, getting that extended contract, and B, trusting his leadership going forward. I think that's probably the nicest way to say it. You can compare Disney's performance tomorrow with the performance of many other media companies. Because guess what? Everybody's kind of struggling, and they have to be. Lots of shifts have taken place in the landscape over the course of the last few years. All of them kind of forced errors, to be fair, in everybody diving into streaming all at one time and creating their own walled garden, which kind of, created a, pick one or the other moment in time. The majority of analysts, for some reason, seem to be somewhat optimistic about Disney's future. I can tell you that I am not, and for many reasons, all of the ones that I've given you, plus the fact that there continues to be negative news coming out from Disney about Disney almost every day. And despite a media deluge trying to essentially make this all about Iger versus DeSantis, that's not working, at least not with the general public, and it doesn't seem to be working with the financial folks. The financial press have a different perspective than the overall analysts, but many Wall Street analysts, about 2/3 right now, are recommending Disney as a buy. If you look at the stock price over the last few days, it doesn't look like much of a buy, or that anybody's listening to these analysts. And I don't blame them. I'm not a financial professional, and I certainly wouldn't advise you on how to spend your money, but I'm going to take a wait and see approach to Disney. Not just on the financial side, but maybe on everything else. Because I don't trust Disney, and that's the public sentiment that they're fighting with right now. Nobody does. Nobody trusts Disney. You can't trust them to put out a show that you can set your kids in front of that isn't going to have a lot of hardcore neo-Marxist messaging. There's been a removal of value from anything that you can find when you go to their theme parks. In fact, their value prop continually drops. And You get less and less incentive to stay on site, and more incentive to explore your options in Central Florida. Most people are headed to Universal, SeaWorld, a few other places, including, well, even the smaller options like Gatorland, which is pretty cool. Analysts are projecting a small increase in revenue from the previous quarter, up about 3% and up about 5% over last year. Interestingly enough, that didn't keep pace with inflation. That increase isn't going to matter very much, and it certainly hasn't. And we're watching their revenues fall pretty rapidly. And while revenue may be on the rise overall, it's not necessarily going to produce any more profit, even with the massive layoffs that occurred, which were, well over 7,000 people. By the way, there's more to come. I think I mentioned that just a few moments ago, but look out. There's more coming. As I mentioned a couple of days ago, ESPN is, well, potentially available for purchase. Maybe not outright, but they certainly want to get rid of part of it. I would imagine they'd want to get rid of all of it. And all of it's because of the pressure that's been placed on them to purchase Hulu by Comcast, their rival, who is literally kicking their butt in Central Florida right now with, well, they're offering it Universal Orlando. And that's about to get even more extreme as Epic Universe will open up in 2024. One of the other things that we'll learn more about on Wednesday, August 9th, the day you're probably watching this video, is that maybe subscribers have gone down at Disney Plus. Perhaps overall they've lost subscribers. Right now they have the second largest subscriber count, second only to Netflix, because when you combine their subscriber count, they have 231 million. Netflix is 238 million. And for Netflix, their only job is streaming. For Disney, it's much more and far more complicated. Adding to that, of course, is the fact that streaming assets from any of these studio companies, yeah, they're not profitable yet, nor will they be for some time. And I guarantee that that's going to be something that will be a pivotal question for Uncle Bob to answer, whether or not he's going to be able to hit the target of making Disney Plus and any of their streaming stuff profitable by the 2024 deadline that he set himself. I predict Disney will have had larger than expected churn, especially after their recent price increase. And then you have the negative sentiment towards Bob because of his comments that he's been making lately. He has not exactly been, well, the best representative of the Disney brand in various interviews and in any public statements. He's spoken to Hollywood in a very condescending manner, essentially saying this is the worst possible time for them to strike. Okay, Bob, when would have been a better time? Of course they're going to strike when they have you on the ropes, and of course they need to take advantage of that position of power. But you're in a financial position to ignore them, and you're doing a very good job of that. Resolving the issue in Disney's favor isn't going to help these people in the long run because they'll be replaced by AI who can do things better, at least probably better than what we have now as far as writers. As far as acting, well, that's debatable, and we'll see what that works out like in the future. But the cat's out of the bag is that, well, for the last, I guess, 3 months at this point, or nearly 3 months, you've had a cost savings because Hollywood hasn't been spending money. David Zaslav over at Warner Brothers Discovery actually took his time to explain that to everybody, that they'd saved about $100 million during the most recent quarter. Technically, that's just an offset, and that actually they also lost probably an equivalent, if not more, amount of money, and he kind of hinted at that as well during his earnings call. Now, I think Bob could try to pivot that direction, but I believe that people will see through that as well and recognize that, well, if you're saving money, you're only doing it temporarily to spend it later making the same things you'd already planned on. Or maybe not. Maybe Bob's wisened up and has decided to invest in things people will want to see. I don't know. Could happen. And finally, there's something else that I noticed, and it's a very interesting thing that a lot of analysts are trying to suggest, and it's this. Disney could report more cash on hand, either as a result of the savings from not actually producing material, or because some of the layoffs did yield some benefits. I know that they'll be able to point towards LaTonda Newton's salary, for example, and a few other people that have left Disney along the way. The problem is, well, that's just a drop in the bucket. And the 7,000 people you got rid of, well,
that's a lot of people.
They better show a serious cost savings, or else that was all in vain. Or, I guess, if you could see it a different way, it would have been even worse. I don't have high expectations for Disney on this. I haven't in a while. We'll have to see what works out here. But for my money, Disney's going to have a very bad day today. Make sure you watch the VR Valiant Renegade stream, because I know he'll be covering the earnings call, and I'll be watching it too. As usual, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye.